tuned in to Cardinal Sin and, where I, Cardinal Sin, discuss important pop culture news, reviews, movies, genre fiction, comics, storytelling, and just about anything else with my fellow YouTubers. Get ready for informed conversation about what's going on, for as your humble host, I rely on my guests to provide the talking points, whether it's a panel or just me one-on-one with a friend. So get ready for Cardinal Sin and...
This stream and all streams on this channel are sponsored by StreamYard, the easiest way to create professional live streams. StreamYard is a live streaming studio in your browser. Interview guests, share your screen, and much more. Stream directly to Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, and other platforms. Always look professional, no software downloads, and trust me, if I can do it, you can do it. Thanks to StreamYard for sponsoring this show.
And welcome followers. It is I, Cardinal Sin, and I am very proud and honored to welcome Culture Casino to the channel.
Well, thanks for having me. I'm glad to be here. Thanks for the warm welcome. I'm excited.
Yeah, how you been, man?
Pretty good. A little busy, as you do. You understand. We stream every single day. Plus, I try to maintain a regular job on top of several other very time-consuming hobbies. So yeah, I don't sleep a lot, but I'm doing great. Everything's been going very well. So.
Sleep lately has been a problem, I will admit.
Oh, yeah.
Let's say hail to some people in the chat. Equalizer is here. Hail to the end of time, to the time prophet.
Ooh, hey, what's up? Don
McDouglas. I got to tell you, Culture, for the beginning, first 3 minutes of a stream, that's a pretty good audience for me. So,
oh well. Hey, I'm glad they're here. I'm looking forward to watching it grow. Of course we're fighting some big shows right now, so I'm glad to be here.
We are
doing this,
yeah, and I appreciate your sharing the link in your social media.
Absolutely.
And I've just tweeted that we're live, so
fantastic.
Anybody that's watching, if you would care to retweet, I would certainly appreciate it. And while I am asking for favors, the Stream Elements bot is here, but I have yet to figure out how to make the Stream Elements tip jar work. So you can vamp for me while I type.
Sure. Yeah, actually, I got the Stream Elements thing to work and then figured out that when it does work, it doxes me. So
really?
Yeah, and it's okay. I mean, there were only a few people that used the tip jar, before I was advised of what was happening. So I turned it right back off, and
that's weird.
Yeah,
well, maybe this is for the better.
Well, I always stick with the traditional methods. So, but I'm really, like I said, I'm really thankful that option's available, because there are some creators that absolutely should be getting compensated for their time, and their audience is more than happy to.
Yeah. And so what I've done is put my personal PayPal link into the chat here, and it's 100% secure. I don't see any of your credit card information. So if you enjoy the content, if you'd like to buy me a coffee or send a $1 or $2 or $5, you can do so at that URL. And with that out of the way, let's get into the conversation here.
Sounds good.
Now, culture, you know that on my channel, I normally cover, pop culture, Star Trek, Star Wars, Doctor Who, that kind of thing.
Right.
I have a show on Thursdays, which is my paranormal UFO show, Into the Fringe. And then Wednesdays, Captain Cockney Spock and I are going to be doing a prisoner review show every week. And the day before yesterday, we had Tracy Torme on, and he had a personal experience, if you will, with Patrick McGoohan. And one of his personal assistants, Tracy's, creator of Sliders, and one of my personal heroes, because I'm a screenwriter, and as a showrunner and a screenwriter, he's written hundreds of hours of really good TV. His first mentor was Joe Stefano of the original Outer Limits, and his second mentor was Gene Roddenberry during the beginning of Star Trek: The Next Generation. And Tracy worked on that show for the first 2 seasons until a producer got into his face and he said, fuck this, I don't need this, I'm out of here. If you've ever seen the Star Trek episode, The Royale, the episode where they go to the hotel room and it's based on the book that the astronaut left there, they completely changed everything about his story, and that's one of the reasons I think why he walked. But he invented the holodeck, the character of Dixon Hill, and he's done so much more. But when he was working at Universal Studios, one of his personal assistants knew Patrick McGoohan for some reason. So she asked him, do you want to meet him? And he was like, yes. And so at some point he got someone came in the room and said, there's somebody on the phone for you, and it's somebody special. And he said, clear all my appointments. He knew who it was. And they talked on the phone. And then Patrick McGoohan came into his office and spoke to him for 2 hours about The Prisoner. And, Patrick McGoohan was a pretty stern, very, very Catholic guy, which is why he turned down the role of James Bond twice. He wouldn't kiss any woman other than his wife. But he was famously Danger Man or Secret Agent, depending on which side of the pond you live on.
Right.
And, of course, then he got the opportunity to do The Prisoner, which is, I think, more topical and relevant today than it was in 1967 when it came out.
Wow. Yeah, that is going back a ways. And, yeah, The Prisoner was pretty cool. If I remember
the foundational series.
Yeah, if I remember correctly, I mean, the character in that didn't actually have a name, went by number.
Right. And the whole point of the series was, Patrick McGoohan was angry and afraid that, governments were going to be reducing human beings, individuals, to their social security numbers.
Right.
And that's why he was number 6. And every week there was a new number 2 because he foiled that episode's number 2 to try to figure out why he resigned, which was the whole point of the series. But the significant thing is that the individualism was the strong point, right, versus kind of the settling into not worrying about the news and playing video games and all that. I mean, not at that time, obviously, but the way that it's translated in today's world, I think, is, that today's governments are, well, let me read the sentence that I prepared earlier. I know we're going to get more political than I usually do, so I'll just start out by saying surveillance capitalism has resulted in governments around the world using COVID as an excuse to exert a soft resolution, quote, from above. Are you familiar with that term?
Yeah, I like you said it, and I think it's even more severe than that, because you have the governments of the world working in concert with corporations, and essentially kind of controlling everybody's destiny in a very overtly authoritarian way. I mean, it's a conversation that we have quite often. If you follow any of the comics division streams, which I think you do, we do Monday and Thursdays. We do
especially recently. It's been must see watching.
Yeah. Wow. Diego says check my DMs. That's not good news. But anyway, but no. But we did a lot of conversation around this idea, and I think I mentioned this earlier. I think when we were backstage earlier, and I kind of feel like you're seeing in real time corporatism is a form of government. I think that's even more where we're headed.
Sort of the oligarchy. Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, you have the oligarchs are beyond the government's control at this point. The governments have not reined in any of these people. And it's very unusual. Governments usually don't let private citizens get to a point where they can exceed or ignore their authority. And the last several governments here in the United States and Canada and even China have ignored, to a certain extent, these oligarchs. Now, China recently has reined them in, but I always comes to mind, we are headed towards Cyberpunk 2077, living in an era where slowly everything becomes run by 5-6 corporations. I mean, and that's the problem. We stopped having trust laws enforced, not just in our country, but other countries around the world.
Antitrust laws?
Yeah. But they're trust busters. That's antitrust is the idea.
Right.
Yeah. And so you have monopolistic practices that these companies have been allowed to get away with and are very seldom called on the table. Recently, if you followed it, Epic Games was having a disagreement with Apple, with their Apple Store, and the fact that they wanted to be able to sell their in-game product, which is called V-Bucks, to their customers directly, skipping the 20-40% take, whatever it is, that Apple took out of every single dollar that they earned, because they wanted the V-Bucks to flow through them, and if it did, they got their giant cut. Well, they're not doing anything for that cut, and they're already collecting revenue from Epic, to have the game there, to have the game available on the store. So it's one of those really weird situations that took a while to be rectified, and it was just a few days ago in a very weird mixed decision where Apple still is going to be able to maintain the way they run their store. However, the thing that Epic wanted to have happen is going to be allowed to happen. Developers will be able to let the end user be aware that there are other ways to acquire the in-game currencies that don't have to flow through the Apple Store. That they
the microtransactions and so forth. Yeah.
That's exactly the right term. And so and that's a lot of revenue for Apple. But
it is. Yeah.
But that was a demonstration of a monopolistic practice, which did.
I'm even still surprised that when I send a super chat Sometimes I get the receipt from Apple rather than Google.
Sure. Yeah, it depends on how you are paying. Yeah, so for example, and this isn't going to happen for very much longer because I'm migrating off of I will not have Apple devices in the year 2022. I will be migrating completely out of Apple, which is weird.
I see.
For an artistic human being to move away.
Yeah, you've been using Macs and stuff all your life, right?
Yeah. I use everything, right? I mean, Macs, PCs. I had to be conversant in all of the tech, and so and
Amigas.
Way back in the day. Yeah, I used.
Good for you.
Yeah, I used a cat. I used all kinds of stuff going way back in time. Yeah, I had a Trash 80. You guys remember what a Trash 80 is?
Yeah, I had a Commodore PET, but not at the time.
Yeah,
when I was very successul in sales, when I had more money than sense, and now I have neither. I bought on eBay. I bought a copy or a model of every computer that Commodore or Amiga put out, except for one, which was basically a glorified calculator. It was a business machine. And I had to sell them all eventually, but I made a profit on every single one of them. So
I loved, like I said, I loved all my computers. I hand built one of my first PCs, which was a 286. I built what they call a Mac clone, which was built out of Intel pieces and parts or IBM pieces and parts, but was actually able to run the Apple OS. Okay, so I learned how to program,
and that was not easy at the time.
No. And I built.
It's not like a Hackintosh is.
No,
today.
Hackintosh is a little simpler now, but yeah, I did a lot of really fun stuff. And I don't miss. I don't miss some of the early tech stuff from back when I was in IT. I don't miss a lot of that, but I taught myself everything, all the computer languages, all that. I learned ProDOS, for on the Apple side, and I learned Cobalt, Fortran, etc.
I learned BASIC.
Yeah, I did. Hey, I was programming in BASIC, I think, in 5th and 6th grade. That was one of the coolest things. Yeah.
I actually programmed in HTML 4.x because although all my friends were making fun of me for not using an editor, I wanted to understand the code because I'm kind of a coder at heart. And eventually cascading style sheets came along, and I was like, fuck it, I'm going to use an editor.
Yeah.
But I still now even remember enough HTML that, I can put it in where it matters.
Yeah, it's one of those things. It's like I always tell somebody, if you know the basic, markup language, you can do some really impressive things, even with using CSS and other little toys like, JavaScript and all those things. But
the Time Prophet says I can program in BASIC, C, C++, C hashtag, and all the web languages. I'm not familiar with that C hashtag one.
C bash? Don't know. Anyway, what was I thinking? But yeah, I really enjoyed that. And I've done, like I said, a lot of that stuff. But
I was very anti-Microsoft, especially when I was a younger man, and I started out on a Fat Mac. You're familiar with the Fat Mac?
Yeah.
And I was doing the illustrations for my dad's computer science textbooks.
Wow.
And then I bought an Amiga 2000 and an Amiga 500 from the same person. And I sold the Amiga 500 for the same price that I paid for both of them. So I got mine for free. But when you were an Amiga user, you were expected to make all your own upgrades, know how to install, daughter cards and all that kind of stuff. And so when I went to work for Radio Shack, it was pretty much already, I was already trained I just had to get the certificates.
That's fun. Yeah, I mean, like I said, I mean, it sounds like we had some parallel experiences as younger folks. I really, like I said, I enjoyed building PCs, but I always stayed conversant in both because, again, from the artistic side, you can't beat some of the stuff you can work with or used to be able to work with in Mac exclusively. Things just worked better there, especially video editing stuff. I mean, the studio products,
desktop publishing.
Superior. Yeah, vastly superior. But now I'm fully migrated back to a PC for editing. So, so am I. I started out on the Mac when I got the channel going with a PC that was kind of just paired with it to do some other stuff. And then I switched fully over to the PC. Now I'm 1,000% there. So, like I said, I mean, I still have a zillion Macs floating around here. It used to have one actually on this desk too. Like I said, I'm migrating away from my Apple products, which is a bummer because, I use my iPad quite a bit to do a lot of different things. So,
but I'm guessing you're going to tell us about some security issues.
There are massive security problems with Apple. In fact, there's one so great right now that if you own any Apple device, you should be updating it. I mean, any Apple device. I mean, anything.
Yeah, that's what I heard.
Watch, earpods, phones, the whole 9 yards. But it's
actually updated my PC last night.
Yeah, in fact, everybody should have got a PC update notification today for Windows. But it's similar, but not related to what's going on with the Apple exposure. By the way, by a lot.
They have a backdoor to China, I think.
No, they have a backdoor to a lot of places, but this is the problem: is you have a lot of these devices that have these 0-day exploits in them. But that's right. That's beyond even where I was actually headed. I'm migrating so that I can get onto. Believe it or not, I'm going to end up buying a Google product, but I'm going to delete their operating system. So I'm going to be.
And what will you put in its place?
I believe it's called Calyx. It's something that Comics Division talked to me about. I did some research into it, and I will be installing a Secure OS on my phone. I will be using.
I hope you'll send me a link so I can understand.
Absolutely. Yeah. After I play with it a little bit and I feel confident because I need 3 of these phones because that's how many phones I need. So I've got. That's just the way it is. Once I feel like I'm conversant in it, I actually will do a video on it to hopefully walk
very good
through it. Yeah, because I feel like that might be valuable to folks.
Especially to YouTubers that are already, in danger of getting their accounts hacked.
Yeah.
It's very easy, even if you take a lot of trouble. Make sure your passwords are all, hexadecimally, correct. It's easy these days to just not even know that somebody else is watching you.
Well, and that's the other problem, and that actually feeds into this whole corporate conversation that we're having, I think, and that is that everybody can be spied on. You can be tracked. You may not even know. The iOS recently built several different trackers into their iOS system to track you in various different ways. Obviously, for this contact tracing stuff that they want to do for folks. And again, this is a segue into the bigger conversation. You were talking about, the way we're going about things with the current global crisis that we've been dealing with for 2 years now. That, a lot of things are being done under the guise of safety and security.
Yes.
Which is not true. You cannot and should not allow anybody to infringe upon what are your actual rights. Period.
Or your privacy.
No, privacy is one of those rights, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, it's a weird place that we're in when you have people unwittingly is the right word, unwittingly surrendering a certain level of their privacy. And you're doing it anytime you sign a EULA, an end user license agreement. You're doing it
you're giving up more of your rights.
Yep, you're signing
and
it.
And the shift, by the way, from the governmental bodies to the corporate ones makes it easy for things that used to be state secrets and are subject to the Freedom of Information Act requests to now become the corporates, what's their term, for their secret. I'm spacing it now.
Yeah, no, okay, so you have a certain amount of things
like
the exercise of control.
For the corporate subcontractors will have trade secrets. That's the word I was looking for.
Yeah, intellectual property.
And so they can farm that stuff up to the corporations and the subcontractors, and they're not subject to FOIA laws.
But everything that's a transactional prior to that happening outside of the government, they are. So I like I said, I mean, again, this is the whole follow the money conversation that you can have when it comes to any of this stuff, right? That's why if you follow the money to BlackRock, you see that BlackRock is heavily invested in the Chinese real estate investment holdings companies. And hey, what's up, Jace? And you see that they're in over their heads with right now a real estate fund that's in big trouble in China. It's called China
Big Trouble in China.
Yeah, exactly. It's called China Evergrande, and they are close to default. They control 300. I'm going to get this wrong. It's either 385 or 305 billion dollars worth of real estate alone. And some of the biggest names that are primary holders there include BlackRock and some other banks like HMC, or like the big Canadian bank, the big UK bank. I mean, again, these are institutional
Deutsche Bank.
Yeah, some of the big ones. Yeah, and so they are exposed again. And these are the people that primarily fund short sellers, hedge funds, the ones that go after AMC and GameStop and other stuff like that the retail investors have been trying to put a stop to. Those are those people. Those are the players. The corporate robbers are they're getting rich off of robbing you by robbing companies that you might be invested in. There is a huge pension fund that's actually invested in this China Evergrande fund. So just be aware. And of course, this is a Chinese company. So we should not be very comfortable with how leveraged a lot of our large institutions that are to some extent government supported, like BlackRock, that we've grown to become. So a lot of people don't pay attention to that side of things, right? From the largest bondholders for these groups like China Evergrande. So when you have 29 billion dollars tied up there, as let's say maybe
I'd like to have 0.1% of that.
Yeah, I think we all would. But that would be what BlackRock's supposed investment was in that as of yesterday.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that
and the big problem, if I may, is that the two main political parties in the United States, the Republicans and the Democrats, have the same fucking donors.
Yep, they do.
And somebody will give a Democratic candidate for Senate, let's say, in a certain race, $36 million, and they'll give the Republican candidate $36 million. And later, you come to find, once that person's become elected, one or the other, that company is awarded a contract in the billions. This happens every day, all the time.
It's that level of insidious, or I would consider it corrupt. I don't like the way the lobbying system works in this country.
If you want to talk about insidious, wait until we get into my sports discussion.
All right. Well, sounds good. I'm going to let you take the lead on that one. But it's when you look at that, and I've been on the record multiple times here on this platform and throughout my life, going back to high school, where I was debating this in, I think, 8th grade, that lobbying, there should not be professional lobbying. Lobbying shouldn't extend beyond a common citizen. Yeah, you should not be able to influence the government with money that way, because it creates a quid pro quo.
If I may,
yeah,
I have someone on and ask them questions, and then I proceed to interrupt them. That's just the way that I am. But I have to do it while I'm thinking about it, or I'll forget it.
Oh, I understand.
As a matter of fact, I think in explaining that, I may have just forgotten it. What were you just saying?
That I think it's wrong to establish a quid pro quo through that form of lobbying.
For lobbying, right. So, yeah, the professional lobbyist is really the lowest form of life, even lower than lawyers.
Well, they are lawyers.
And lawyers are actually, yes, they are. Lawyers are actually useful. But the whole concept of democracy is one man, one vote, one woman, one vote, obviously, and that the will of the people is the whole point of governance, that we elect our own representatives and they are supposed to do our bidding. They're our employees. They're civil servants. But what's happened is that they have been taking money, especially since the Citizens United thing came into being, where corporations were considered citizens, and dark money and all that political stuff. Since that happened, all the senators and Congress beings, which I get from Robert Anton Wilson, are millionaires, and even the squad, the Justice Democrats, who weren't going to take any corporate money, have kind of changed since they've been in office. And the entire problem is what Ike warned us about in his going away speech about the military-industrial complex, except now with the internet, when we feel like we've got more freedom and there's all these different places we can go and things we can do, that's just the front end. People don't realize on the other side, it's a massive data collection machine that goes to that Utah data center, and they say they don't collect all of our emails and all of our texts, but they probably do. And when they get an AI powerful enough to sweep through and comb through all of that stuff using keywords and what have you, it's just going to be a way to further reduce human beings and individuals to a number, just like in The Prisoner.
Yeah. Wow. Ultimately, one of the biggest concerns for the Social Security number, and it was that you would be reduced down to that. You would be reduced down to a number. People made direct parallel comparisons to the number of the beast, right? Back when they started to assign this number. I have a real problem with that number being used for anything other than Social Security benefits.
Right. Me too.
It bothers me that it's utilized for credit score. It bothers me that it's utilized for purposes of tracking, and now as a form of identification, which it was never supposed to be used for up until very
I was
recently.
Just saying in yesterday's chat that I got my first Social Security card when I was 6 years old because I was passing out milk in the cafeteria, and I wasn't being paid minimum wage, but I was being paid. And my mom told me, this is your security card. It has your Social Security number on it. Never let anyone see it.
Yep.
It will never be used to track you or to do anything other than, tell the government how much money you're making at your job.
Right.
And all the things that she said wouldn't happen have happened and more.
Yeah, and that's the problem is now those numbers are regularly compromised because everybody wants them. And so when you hand them over and they get compromised, their identity has been stolen and other people utilize those numbers. You've created huge problems for the future, which again, it could have been prevented. When this is one of the funniest things, because this meme is 1,000% true. We're from the government. We're here to help you, and they're really the only thing that they're to help you with is the removal of money from your wallet, because you in this country don't realize the benefit of your taxes. It's not a 1-for-1 exchange. In fact, it's not even a 10-for-1 exchange. And to a certain extent, the point.
And let's not even get started in fractional reserve banking, right?
Well, I don't even want to. Yeah, if we go into the Federal Reserve System or any of those like monetary,
we'll be here all night.
Yeah, monetary policy is a 4 or 5 hour conversation, especially around the Fed. Most people don't realize that the Fed's not actually a government entity; it's a private corp. Most people don't.
It's neither federal nor does it have any reserves.
No, and it doesn't. And here's the problem. There was a letter that was written to Congress by the Fed recently, just a few days ago, essentially saying our currency will collapse if you don't raise the debt limit. I mean, that went to Pelosi. It's on record. You can find it. It's out there in the universe. But
I mean, if you think about it, will lead to the collapse of not only American civilization, but worldwide civilization.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You would destroy everything. I mean, that's the problem. Is right now, the only reserve currency in the world is the U.S. Right now, China can't. I mean, they could try to essentially make the yuan, the yuan.
The yuan, but they keep devaluing it.
Well,
so.
They're doing.
We're doing nobody will be able to get a lock on what it's actually worth,
and that's the problem. And this is the other problem with the fiat currency, right? The moment we took ourselves from the gold and silver standard, like an actual commoditized currency, we got screwed. And that also created some very strange relational circumstances as well when it comes to. The ability for the average person to go into substantial amounts of debt. So, but anyway, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to add to that, one of the modern day results of that is what we're seeing with these huge mega corporations like Apple and Amazon and this, because we have these corrupt politicians that are being more or less legally bribed by huge corporations, and they don't have to say who they are or how much money they gave to this candidate or that candidate.
Because you establish
it's becoming not only insidious but sort of exponentially worse. Every day it's compounded worse and worse.
Well, again, I mean, you have people not being held accountable for the very obvious violations that are done in plain sight. And I'm referring specifically to AOC. Her dress at the gala and her ticket were both illegal
contributions. Wasn't that a beautiful dress?
Yeah, it was. Illegal contributions. And, it were associated with her visit to the Met, 2 of them. So I think one of was the ticket for her friend, the guy who she was with, and the other thing I believe was for the dress itself. There were 2 violations is all I can remember.
Is this part of the they're not supposed to receive any gifts?
Yeah, no
thing?
gift. Yeah. And so, but this is not uncommon. You see this. You see backroom deals between these people, like, hey, we're gonna use this company that your family member controls to do this business for us. And that's not a direct contribution, right? You can't change that. I mean, there was lots of little bits that, you find that people get in trouble for, they get caught for all the time. And this kind of stuff's been exposed, on fun television programs and all kinds of things, but it happens every day in real life. And we can't just ignore it. We can't, but we do.
No.
And we end up in this position. And right now, essentially everything right now is going to be controlled by corporations. And what's worse, and this is you and I talked a little bit about this behind the scenes. China has something called the social credit score, right? Here in the United States, we have ESG, which is implemented by the banks. So if you don't follow the right path, you don't have the right mindset or whatever, you may not get a loan. You can be financially qualified for the loan. And
as a matter of fact, I'm worse than having bad credit. I have no credit.
Right. Yeah. And that's why you're actually seeing banks lend outside of what would normally be considered a smart risk based on different factors. They're loaning out of, and this is bad business, in situations of equity, right? Not equity as we understand it, like you build equity in your house or whatever it is that you have or own. No, equity in your standing in society. Now, equity in those terms, that's a social word. That's a very statusy word. That's not okay. Because again, you're working in opposition to established laws, and if you're publicly held, good business practices. In fact, I don't think that. I don't think that if this were challenged legally, that it would be allowed to stand. There right now.
I don't know, because there are a lot of corrupt judges too.
Well, we're seeing a lot of subterfuge be done just to get some of these things implemented with these private corporations. For example, the federal government, because of sleepy leader of the free world guy that's in the executive office right now. I have
a feeling you're having a hard time bringing yourself to call him president.
Anyway, the dementia patient in the not quite round room. Anyway, he is it's equity. It's not equality. And I believe we should be the other way around. You're right. We should have equality, not equity. But anyway, so he's going around because he knows this is illegal. He's using OSHA to make a special rule so they can force companies to implement something that could be harmful for their health that they can't hold the maker of responsible for. And this is the thing. So if we're at the point where these things are safe, and we've been told by expert after expert after expert that they're safe, very few issues at all with them, which has been argued by others, but I'm not going to do that here because I'm not a doctor. Don't give medical advice. Never will.
Right.
If that's the case, then
not until you get your MD anyway.
Well, that's right. But here, if you have that much faith, remove the safeguards and the liability safeguards that you guaranteed these entities that are making these things.
Mm-hmm.
Because they have no financial exposure. The government is putting you in a position where you can't go after them. So who do you sue then? The government? Who are you going to sue if you have irreparable harm from something like this? Imagine if they said, you know what, all the automobile manufacturers, they aren't liable for any kind of malfunction in their vehicle any longer. You think?
No, really?
No. Just imagine.
They just do recalls.
Yeah. Well, no. I'm offering a hypothetical. So just imagine if that were the government were to say that. Just say, all they said was, you don't have to worry about. Car manufacturers, you can't sue them anymore because the vehicles were inspected by the government. Who are you going to sue then? And how often do you think recalls would happen? If you no longer have liability, if there's no longer, catastrophic consequences to providing an inferior product, what's gonna make it so that you just won't continue to get those from corporations? There won't. I mean, again, anytime
let's face it, the interest is not in us.
No.
And making sure that we are healthy and happy and enjoy all those freedoms that our founding fathers fought and died for.
Right.
It's about the bottom line, and that's a problem.
Yeah.
And it's getting dark, and it's going to get darker.
Well, and that's the thing. I mean, but this is the other cool thing, and I think you'll probably agree. You're starting to see more and more people wake up, and this, I know, maybe has included you. That you're starting to see these things because we've been led into them over the course of,
and as a, how do I put it? In full disclosure, I'm a classic lefty liberal, not a neoliberal. I don't like what the Democratic Party's doing. I was just, left of center. That's all.
Yeah.
And then I became a centrist. And, as we said before the show, the Republicans and the Democrats get their money from the same exact fucking donors. And these problems are not really left or right problems. The way you see the world, the way I see the world, the way everyone sees the world is through a different lens, right? Everybody has a different approach, whether it's, I'm afraid they're going to take my guns and my Second Amendment rights, or what have you. But these concerns are all now in the same big ball of stuff. And left and right really don't mean a whole lot anymore.
Yeah.
Because it's corporate, not political.
Right. And that's ultimately kind of the thing that I've come around to, in the last couple of years, is that, because as you alluded to earlier, we are no longer cared for as the constituents of the politicians that we put in office. The corporations are now the constituents of the politicians, and therefore they
exactly
they do the bidding of that constituency.
And this is a good point for me to segue a little bit,
Sure.
if I may.
Absolutely.
I'm going to go ahead and make myself big here. Cory Doctorow, as a science fiction writer and a screenwriter myself, Cory Doctorow is one of my favorite writers. And here's some of the reasons why.
There you go. How to Destroy the Surveillance Capitalism. Excellent.
Yeah. Great book.
All right.
Not a serious read.
Yeah.
It's not going to take up a lot of your time. It's a great book. I really recommend it.
Oh, wow.
This is a book for which he became famous.
Information doesn't want to be free.
Yes.
Yeah.
And on top of that, he was an Imagineer at Disney.
Oh, yeah.
And
I know a few of those.
Actually worked in that big underground system and understood it, and he wrote this book.
Down and Out in the Magic Kingdom.
Yeah.
Cory Doctorow. I'm going to have to take a look at this. That's fantastic.
And while we're on it, he also wrote Pirate Cinema, which is a little thicker of a book.
That's a little thicker. Yeah. Yeah.
And
dude, you're going to send me down a rabbit hole of reading for like a month. So
good.
Yeah.
And another one that actually kind of circles back to what we're talking about. He did a YA book called Little Brother, and the implication there is obvious. And then this is the non-YA sequel,
Homeland. Wow.
And it's a standalone book. You don't have to consume Little Brother to really enjoy it. But he is a founding member of the Electronic Frontier Foundation, and had a great deal of very intelligent. I mean, not just that he's a smart guy, not just that he's a good writer and a good science fiction writer. He is an IT guru. He knows what's going on the inside of your machine and your device. As a matter of fact, he was really big into the problem of DRM. You're familiar.
Digital rights management.
Correct. And these big companies like Google and Apple put locks on their software, their hardware, and the person that uses the average phone does not have the right to go in and change the operating system, elements of the operating system, because, like you said, of that EULA. And if you try to do so, you not only void the warranty, but you could be sued. And you probably will be sued.
Well,
and as you were saying before, it's very important that as the end user, like with the Amiga, that we not only are expected to maintain and upgrade our own devices, but we know how. Instead of these little insidious, devices that during today, our modern day surveillance capitalism with, cameras. And I mean, I remember hearing cable boxes had microphones in them back in the 80s. And everything is made in China now, including all of the pharmaceuticals I have to take. If we get into a conflict with China, and they now make all our pharmaceuticals, and the scale goes up as you get older. People that depend on insulin, high blood pressure medication, what have you. If we get into any kind of a serious conflict with China, where are you going to get your pharmaceuticals? There are no more production plants in the United States.
We actually have a few companies that are restarting operations in various areas, including pharmaceuticals, but also in chip manufacturing because of.
I'm glad to hear that. Yeah, we used to be the leader in those things.
Well, we did, and then again, because of the corporate mentality, in order to eke out another, $10 million bonus for the CEO, you relocate manufacturing operations to another place where it's supposed to be cheaper.
Right.
Sorry, the bear dog's barking.
No, that's fine.
His mom must have gone outside. He gets mad. So anyway, but it's
one of those YouTube things that happens. You just,
I know.
After a while, you get desensitized to it.
Well, I just usually like to be as professional as possible. So, but the DRM exists in a lot of different ways, right? But there are some court cases that suggest that you you'll have that you can access anything that you purchase, and put effort into replacing the operating system or whatnot. There have been court cases that suggest that when you buy something digitally, you do own it. That's why Hollywood is constantly fighting the battle over digital rights and stuff like that. So
streaming versus physical media.
Yeah, versus physical. And so you have people that
and in a sense, thank God for motherfucking COVID-19. We don't use baby talk on my channel. We don't talk about the coof or Yahtzees or anything like that. The situation that we're going through right now, and we've been going through for at least the last 18 months, has been a huge power grab by the government of this country, just like 9/11 was.
Well, exactly. Yeah, you've lost another significant chunk of things that you considered that you couldn't possibly lose. So guess what? You have to take them back, because they're not going to give them back, which is why you can't surrender it to begin with. Right. And here's the thing. I mean, everybody changed their tune when the leadership of the government changed. But this was the largest transfer of wealth we've had in this country since 9/11.
Ever.
Well, since 9/11. 9/11,
the largest transfer of wealth upward from
from everybody else.
The poor to the extremely wealthy.
Yeah.
I mean, Jeff Bezos has a yacht that is bigger than any other yacht, and it has its own yacht, for fuck's sake.
Yeah, when your boat needs a boat, that's
it's too big.
That's bananas. Yeah. And it's not a dinghy, it's not a tender, it's not something that he uses to go, to town with, right? Because he can't park his boat, in certain places. No, it's another freaking giant boat.
I don't know how it compares to a military vessel, but it's big.
Well, and look, I mean, again, how someone spends their money. I don't count other people's money. But there is something to be said for the fact that there should be reasonable taxes on individuals at the extreme elite uber wealthy levels, right? And there just isn't, because anything can be written off, because much like a smart business person, when you realize that if you start a business, you should probably incorporate it and make it its own citizen. Number one, it protects you from the liability, grants you some level of a liability shield. But number two, it isolates your personal funds from the business funds. So if you need something, you need a car, the business can buy the car. And that's a tax write-off. And that's not, and it's something that the employee can use to their benefit, but it isn't something that you transferred money into your personal holding and then bought, and then you now are going to get taxed on the money that came into your possession to buy the car. There's a lot of ways to go about doing things, when you have a corporation. So it all works out, that way.
And to dig in a little deeper, while I said, I started out as a lefty classic liberal, not the, simpering Democratic Party of today. I also believe very strongly in personal freedoms, in privacy, in having a government that's afraid of its people rather than the people being afraid of their government. And what's happened with China and woke culture is, there's no word worse than insidious than I can think of. But all the things that I thought of as, this movement in pop culture that's taking over, it's not from pop culture, folks. It's not just from the schools. It's from your friends at the CCP. And I had these dots connected for me very recently. And it's been reported on the news. And I've seen a couple of videos recently that really woke me up by people that are from the left side. Mm-hmm. And the thing that's going on with China and ports is that because they play the long game, they approach a developing nation that has a big port, or even a developed nation that has a big port, and they say, look, your port is insecure and it needs to be upgraded. Here's $550 million. And you can use that to upgrade your port and to make it more secure. But they are relying on the knowledge that the leaders of the countries where these ports are owned are corrupt and they skim off the top. Mm-hmm. And over the 5 or 10 years, depending on which country we're talking about, that this loan has transpired, some of these ports haven't even been touched. It's right. Just the money has been skimmed to the point where there's nothing left. Now, politicians come and go. Nations tend to remain more stable, but politicians come and go. Yep. So a new politician comes in to, let's say, Nigeria, where they did have a $550 loan, $billion loan. It's a little different. And it was a 10-year loan, and the new, whoever, I don't know if Nigeria has a president or a prime minister or what, but the new guy came in and he's like, we are in debt to China for what? And this is called debt entrapment. And it's not even in the small print. It says right there, if you don't pay this loan back within 5 or 10 years, we will take ownership of this port. This has happened in 21 ports all over the world, in Africa, in Europe, in Jamaica, in Panama, not the Panama Canal itself, although they have a lot of interest in canals, but a lot of the support services and companies that help that canal function are now Chinese. And 21 ports all over the world that previously weren't Chinese are now run by the Chinese Communist Party. Now, what does that mean? That means that whoever they want to have priority to go through this port is going to have priority. And do you think that the security that is involved with checking stuff that's going through the port is going to give a flying fuck about what comes off of a Chinese ship? Now, here's the other thing. I was alluding to pharmaceuticals earlier. Mm-hmm. The opioid epidemic was created by China, and all this fentanyl that's coming in and finding its way into things like heroin and many other drugs, including just regular old pharmaceuticals, is created in China, and it's 90% pure. And this is no secret. The Office of Foreign Holdings, I think it was, just in the last week, released a document that showed the Russian-Chinese border and the Canadian-American-Mexican border, and showed all these lines of shipping that go directly from one to the other. And then the ones that go to Mexico go up into the United States, and the ones that go to Canada go down into the United States. There's not going to be a revolution in the sense of violence and fascism. It's going to be a soft revolution, and it's been going on for a long time.
Well, I mean, there has been some DEA intelligence reports that have come out that have been unclassified, going back into 2020, where they show how the flow of especially mislabeled things come in as that actually are fentanyl, that come in mislabeled, that get shipped from China. That does happen. I mean, the DEA has got reports on that. You can go look it up. You have a lot of that. But I mean, you also end up with precursors and a lot of other things that come into the United States from China. China is as you mentioned, a huge pharma supplier. But again, they're not the.
They make them in India and in China.
Yeah, and they're not the only one. And then again, you can see the flow of mislabeled things coming in from India and China, but primarily China.
They control the entire generic market.
Yeah, that's insane. But I do know this. I do know the port you were referring to earlier, the one that's in Nigeria, is the Lekki deep sea port. It was a $1.5 billion project. The Chinese brought in a $629 million loan that's supposed to be over several hectares of space, and it's actually going to be utilized as a free trade zone, which means it's quite possible, as you mentioned, that things will fall off of boats, not be tracked, not known about. And that's an interesting thing. And several people in the chat have used the right names in the chat, Klaus Schwab being one of them. If you want to look at how the world is being changed into an authoritarian state, the things that we don't talk about exactly, that guy is the mastermind. He wrote a book about it. And he's if you spend a little bit of time just going over to the open website, the World Economic Forum, you can look at the plans and how they're going to use the same playbook they did for the current crisis that we've been suffering for nearly 2 years.
And the scary thing is, China controls more money than the World Economic Forum and the World Bank combined.
That might be true, but they're also the closest to complete collapse. We can have that conversation in a different way. But
I think you're also right on that, Mark.
Yeah, they're really, really close. That was funny. Good line. I love that. But we're really, really close to that. And so you have of course the WEF, which I just mentioned, but this same playbook that's being used by WEF is going to be used for the so-called climate crisis baloney sausage that the world has been fed for a long time, and they relabel it.
And this is where you and I will agree to disagree.
That's fine.
I believe that
but
there is very serious climate change going on.
That's fine.
That's for a different argument.
It is. But let me just suggest this, because if you are aware of what's happening with that playbook, that same playbook's being employed by the WEF for that purpose, right? This particular movement behind climate change, right? By the way, climate on this planet has always changed. Don't kid yourself. Okay. So but
I happen to believe that there is anthropogenic climate change that's been going on since the Industrial Revolution.
Okay.
And if you look at the climate science,
I have
by the 99% of the scientists that agree that there's something going on,
because it's in their best interest to maintain their jobs. Yep.
Yeah, and keep getting their grant money and etc. That's true.
So just like a politician, they have to live within their lobbying group.
There are floods and fire, wildfires and mudslides and tornadoes in places in the world where they never happened before, each year is getting hotter than the year before it, and that's coming from somewhere.
Sure. Yeah. But again, you're talking about human caused climate change, and there isn't things to support that as far as the evidence goes. And the reason I can say that is because we are still at the point where one eruption of Mount St. Helens, which happened back in the 80s.
Oh yeah. A volcano is much worse.
Which produced in just one event, just one. Now, mind you, these events happen around the world all the time. They're not observed. They're not reported on. That's constantly going on. But just one eruption. Exactly, Don McDouglas. Just one eruption of that volcano produced more pollution in all of its various forms, from greenhouse gases onward, than the entire existence of humanity.
Yes.
So we have no influence on the planet.
I wouldn't say we have no influence.
Okay, but
specifically,
so we have the influence.
Since I was a little kid, when I saw somebody litter, it made me angry. Yeah. I do think we need to be good stewards of the environment.
Sure. Wait, I'm not.
And the corporations that are becoming more and more unregulated are now again putting the wastewater of whatever their product happens to be, and it's, you know, going into our rivers and streams and finding its way into our drinking water. And look at Flint, Michigan, for fuck's sake. I mean, my God. Well, that thing is a nightmare.
And I love this discussion, because this is where I'm like, okay, they change the name of this every decade or so. They tell us that the world is going to end in 7 years if we don't take some radical extreme action. And this has been happening my entire lifetime. I'm over 50
me too.
So
and back in the 70s, they thought the world was going to freeze into a snowball.
I have the clip. I have Leonard Nimoy actually talking about that very thing on the program called Nova here in the United States, talking about the next ice age. I have the magazine articles. Guess what? They're always wrong. So we are so infinitesimally small compared to the planet, right? We have bigger problems. And I like when people bring out and this is cool because I love these kinds of conversations. When you talk about corporations dumping stuff into the water, do you have examples of that outside of China, which is the biggest polluter in the world? Do you have examples of that?
A new coal-fired plant comes online in China every week.
Yeah. No, but I'm talking specifically in the United States. Do you have examples in the United States of big polluters that haven't been held accountable or aren't being held accountable? Those are the questions I like to ask, because I'm willing to accept that there are bad behavior. There are companies that behave badly. I mean, there are. I mean, we see it every day. They do it in every single way. They mistreat their employees. They use.
Oh my God! Look at Amazon.
Yeah. Well, Amazon, Disney. Let's look at Disney. Let's look at. I mean, we can go on and on and on. But I mean, as far as these, if let's stick back with pollution.
And as we said before we started the show, this thing all comes full circle.
It does.
This has all happened before, and it will all happen again.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like we're Battlestar Galactica. We're in it right now. But here's the thing. Again, in my opinion, based on all of the actual data, what can we do that's greater than a natural event? And that we can't. And you know what? We've always had, hey Maria, we've always had random events happen weather-wise. Here's the weird thing. So because we have more access,
but you can't deny the hurricane season is getting longer. It's starting earlier. Yeah. They're getting worse and worse.
Maybe.
I mean, whatever the cause of the climate crisis, it's very real.
Oh, sure, but we can't do anything about it other than what we already do about it as human beings. We adapt to it. So, right? So, I mean, look, here's the problem. You and I didn't exist 50,000 years ago with the same technology we have now. So, information that we would have had written down on stone tablets somewhere in Egypt, didn't get across the planet to say we had a sandstorm today. It's the biggest sandstorm we've ever had. This giant haboob, right? This terrible dust storm.
And it's been raining in the Arabian desert for a few years now when it never did before.
Well, except that if you go back in time, there are suggestions that show that region was incredibly fertile. And
of course,
and it was a much better.
And if you go far enough, you'll find a cataclysm that bottlenecked the entire human population of the world to maybe 500 or 1,000 individuals.
Yeah, no, and so this
and
is why
all the races that people talk about evolved from those 500 or 1,000 individuals, and it wasn't that long ago. It was like 12,600 years ago.
Trace yourself back to Lucy, guys.
Yeah, exactly.
But that's not even so. Like I said, the reason I bring that up is because you and I, if we lived 200 years ago, wouldn't know that they had a massive hurricane in Brazil. Wouldn't know that. We wouldn't know if there was a typhoon, on the other side of the planet. We wouldn't know that. So because we have more knowledge, we think we know more. We think we understand things. We don't.
Well, also, we have had satellite data and photography for 30, 35 years, and they've been taking photos of the glaciers in, the areas where they have glaciers, the mountains where Everest, the Himalayas. And they've been receding and receding, and the Arctic ice, which used to be 2 miles thick, is now almost completely gone in the summer, and the temperatures in Siberia during the winter have been between 70 and 100 degrees Fahrenheit recently. It's very unusual.
Sure. Yeah. And we have unusual weather events all the time. We're currently under the effects of something called a moon wobble.
What's the moon wobble?
Well, okay. So every once in a while, the moon has a slight polar wobble. I know that sounds odd, but it's something that happens.
It's shaped more like an egg than like a sphere. And part of it has a gravitational, well, actually many parts of it have gravitational anomalies, so that one end of it is literally heavier than the other.
But yeah, so, and again, I mean, that obviously we have our tidal shifts. That's happens because the moon wobble. There's a lot of stuff that goes on there. In fact, our tides are managed by the moon. Most people don't realize that. But you have, and we also have solar minimums, solar maximums. We have solar flares. There are periods of solar activity that change us completely. And let's go back in time. Do you remember the hole in the ozone crisis bologna sausage?
Well, I'm not sure it was bologna sausage, because they banned CFCs, chlorofluorocarbons.
Sure.
And now they use something different, but it's a lot smaller than it used to be.
No, it grows and shrinks. Meteorologists, climate scientists will tell you that it obviously it grows and shrinks regularly. We were just more hyper aware of it. We had the technology to observe it.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah. So it's just, and that's what I was trying to say. Yeah, I mean, we dropped off CFCs, but here's the other thing, and this is the thing most people don't understand or weren't aware of. That's probably the best way to put that. Not understand, but aren't aware of. The reason that we were really concerned with Freon, right, the refrigerant, was not because it was a CFC. It's because the patent was going to run out, and we needed to be able to have a new coolant gas that we could keep under patent. So they already had a new gas. You realize how many new gases we've had and how many are on the way? We're already starting to see a shift in cooling units again, because they're changing the formulation of the gas, the compressed gas that actually makes the compression of your air conditioning system work. So I mean, and that's been happening for a while, and it will continue to happen. So every time we come up on a date where something will be compromised, let's say, you'll have a new thing. There'll be a reason to change to a new thing. I'm sorry.
2012 is a good example.
If we're going to talk freely about some of these things and talk about them real, we have to accept that things are presented one way, and that's not the real reason. We're presented not the real reason all the time.
Let's not kid ourselves.
Yeah.
This information is managed very very intentionally. It's not just propaganda, but there are think tanks and even probably government organizations that we might not even know about. I mean, they didn't know about the NSA for a long time. They didn't know about the NRO until not even that long ago.
Right.
But, phrases like flatten the curve.
Right.
That didn't just come out of nowhere.
No.
Somebody came up with that.
No.
It sounds like something a Madison Avenue person would come up with, but it's on this corporate think tank side. And believe the science.
Well,
all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and
these are very intentionally managed buzzwords.
Yeah, of course they are, and that they've been doing that for a very long time. I mean, this thing is packaged like a product.
And I'm a guy that's gotten the vaccine, and I think very highly of the idea of getting the vaccine for COVID. Unfortunately, it's a engineered virus that got leaked out of a Wuhan, bio weapons facility.
There is evidence that has been presented that suggests that that's a possibility, no doubt.
It's not even suggests that they've actually discovered that was the case.
Well,
and that had nothing to do with that wet market.
Well, yeah, we actually we took that away from that. Yeah, but see, this is the other thing, and this is the stuff. Some more things people may not be aware of, information they may not possess, because we have some things that cross between humans and animals. Anytime you have something like that, it means it's probably not going to go anywhere ever. You're going to be dealing with it forever.
Very, very well taken. The area of study of I'm missing the first word. Help me out. Of function.
Oh yeah, gain of function.
Gain of function. Mm-hmm. We stopped doing that in the United States. So guess where they started doing gain of function research? China.
Well, and unfortunately funded by, maybe your tax dollars.
Uncle Sam.
Yeah, look, we can get into the close relationship that the NIH and the and these other entities have, and the people involved that are definitely, for lack of a better word, have a conflict of interest in working together. So that's exactly right. That's what I was saying. The time profit's 100% accurate. Look, I mean, we're going to have flu forever. Coronaviruses like the flu, we're going to have forever. This isn't the reason that
people think, 1 or 2 years we'll get this over with.
It'll be
that's incorrect.
It will eventually be less of an issue.
It will be, but people that think it's going to go away. Sorry, had to use that.
That was awesome. But yeah, it's like I said, I mean, it's one of those things. And the reason that they tried to use a bunch of sciencey words, they used the word novel coronavirus, right?
Right.
But yeah, they didn't say that there's a zillion there's several coronaviruses that you're familiar with, like
the common cold,
but it's okay. This one is different. It's it does some bad things. It's very aggressive. Again, I am not a doctor. I don't work in this area of science, but all of this information is widely available from authoritative sources like the CNN and directly from the CDC, if that's like where you would like to get your information. So,
and while we're on the topic, again, coming at it from the classic left, not the new left, but the classic left, it worries me that in the previous administration, there were so many jobs that used to be filled by experts that were either vacant the entire administration or filled by people that weren't really knowledgeable in those areas.
When we have the same problem now. We have the same
problem.
That's
true.
Now.
That's true.
Yeah. We actually have a lot of unqualified people in positions of authority
in every administration.
Exactly. And that, your point was very well taken. Yeah, it's constant, my friend. Constant. I think we see that more often than anybody realizes. Is like, this is a make good job. You got to make good job in government. You have the right, you did the right thing. You made the right phone call. You have the right friend that helped to get this thing done. So we're going to give you this gig. And,
when you think about American democracy, the flavor of American democracy, the freedoms that we've always enjoyed, up until the 50s or whatever. And even then, United Fruit Company and whatever. But you could rely on the person that was running for president, that got into office, that you voted for or whatever, did the right thing. There were laws constraining them, that the massive overreach of the executive branch over the last 3 administrations has just gotten worse and worse and worse. And you think that any president is going to go, okay, we're gonna stop that. We're gonna take away these emergency powers. We're gonna bring posse comitatus back. No, that's not going to happen.
Well, we still have posse comitatus, but no,
it's in the Constitution, but they violate the Constitution all the time.
Well, and that's the problem. Is right now you have governance by presidential fiat authority. Through the abuse of the declarative powers that he uses and
executive actions.
Exactly. And that's a thing that I can't abide. Frustrates me. Makes me.
Oh, me too.
But yeah, I've got. I don't know. It's pretty bananas. Here's the most important thing: if you are an incoming administration, hire the qualified people for all the gigs, right?
Exactly.
Make sure they're thoroughly vetted. Ensure that there are no entanglements that they have that will compromise them, because currently we have lots of examples of conflict of interest, including the Jen Psaki, job. She shouldn't have that job. She has a family member that does something that she should not have that job. What she does can be influenced one way or another. Plus, she might provide information that would compromise things. So, but yeah, I mean, I'm just
laptops that have been left with state secrets and all that kind of stuff.
Well, and we knew that beforehand, but that was largely ignored. I don't even care. I'm not going to rehash all of that, right?
Right.
The most important part of this is we put the right people in the right positions from day one, and we follow through on stuff, right? We follow through on our plans for the first 100 days. Administrations, that's the time that you get all of your stuff done.
That's when you can spend your political capital, right?
Exactly. And that's the absolutely only time that things can actually get done. And your success in that first 100 days will create either a rising tide behind your administration or a middling and declining tide, which, you want that rising tide. You also want, fair dealings when you're dealing with the other columns, right? You're not getting fair dealings from.
To be honest, I really wish the United States had a parliamentary government style with more than 2 parties, kind of like the Israeli style in I'm forgetting the word.
Too much within the prime minister positions. The ministry positions have too much authority in those circumstances, in my opinion.
But the coalition government style, where you have to compromise and make deals to form a government, and there can be a vote of no confidence, I think that's incredibly important in a representative democracy.
Sure.
Which, let's be honest, we are not anymore.
Well, except that you're taking away the vote of the people that put those people in positions of power.
The Knesset. Sorry.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. No, but you understand what I'm saying is then those people don't represent the actual interest of their constituency because they're compromised into making a compromise. Understand? So, and governance is always about compromises, but they're done.
As I mentioned briefly in one of your shows this week.
Yeah.
And it was a $2 super chat because I'm not monetized yet.
I always tell people don't worry about the money. I read the chat. Have you guys ever followed my shows?
Yeah. You do. Yeah. But I said an old anarchist statement is whoever you vote for, government wins.
Always.
And it's very true.
It's 100% true. Whoever you vote for, government always wins, and that's the thing. So just remember that. I really believe we should be working towards term limits for everybody.
I agree. In the Senate and the Congress, especially.
Yeah, and I think you should have. I think that you should have no more than 8 years for everybody. We may have to change the way the House of Representatives works, right? Maybe they get 12 years, but I don't think anybody deserves more than the President of the United States.
I agree.
No, I don't think
at maximum 2 6-year terms for the representatives and senators. They shouldn't stay in power for 30 years and become fucking millionaires because of it.
Well, that's the thing.
And get free health care. I was angry when I found out when I was a kid that they got free mail and they could send out stuff for free in the mail.
Of course, yeah, they have their own postal service, just like the Vatican.
And they have free health care, and yet when we talk about things like Medicare for all and let's have a social safety net so that for instance, I'm going off tangentially just for a moment.
Oh, go ahead.
Jeff Bezos could end homelessness in this country and he wouldn't even notice.
Probably true. Actually, I think to some extent that's what a lot of these large weird corporation nuttiness is doing right now. They're talking about building essentially homeless buildings, in a certain part of California to try to, migrate them out of San Francisco so that maybe there isn't poop on every sidewalk everywhere.
They're in Lawrence, Kansas, where I live, where the University of Kansas is. Mm-hmm. And if you've ever been interested in college basketball, you know who KU is.
Oh, yeah, KU, baby. Yeah.
Yeah. There are a couple of really big, like the biggest buildings in town, and they're very new, were built on land that had historical significance because of Bleeding Kansas and Quantrill's raid and all that stuff. And they built these huge apartment buildings that are so expensive that no one has lived there. They rearranged the deck chairs where you can see them from the street to make it look like people live there, but no one does. And the developers conveniently didn't pay for the parking garage. They built it, but they made the city end up paying for it.
Oh, yeah.
And I can tell you horror stories that go back decades about the developers. But, there's a very serious housing shortage in Lawrence. There's a lot of obviously broke students.
Oh, yeah.
And there are slumlords, and thank goodness Kansas is a tenant state rather than a landlord state. But these beautiful dwellings that have been built by the developers have been designated as single family units. So one person can't move there. You can't rent control them, you know, and this thing is becoming an epidemic across the United States.
Well, it's some of it has to do with the way rent control laws are put into effect. And it comes down to private ownership of a rental location versus a commercial ownership of a rental location. The problem is that corporations and individuals can both be hurt depending upon how rent management is done, because there has to be an allowance for an equitable change in the value of the property over time. Because as with anything, things appreciate in value. You have inflationary pressures. There's a lot of things. I mean, right now, if you're losing 5 cents a month on every dollar that you have in your pocket. So at the end of how long?
And between 1983 and 2006, the United States dollar lost half of its value.
It's amazing.
And people are talking about a $15 an hour minimum wage. Like that's a big deal. If you follow for inflation, that's minimum wage from back then.
But see, here's the thing. A lot of jobs already are there. That's the thing that always bothers me. I mean, you're still going to have jobs. This is the other problem. You're not supposed to work your lifetime flipping burgers at McDonald's. That's not supposed to be all you aspire to. That's not supposed to be the only
and you
job
can't survive that way.
Right. But you that's not it. That's your job you have in high school and college when you're, going to school. It's the thing I tell people. I mean, I worked multiple jobs, doing school, right?
And I really believe that life is about service.
Oh yeah.
And I've noticed, particularly as I've gotten older and had, neurological issues and all the problems that I have,
all the fun that comes along
the young end up serving the old. Mm-hmm. And that's one of the good things about capitalism.
Yeah.
That I can't, move like I used to because I've got neurological back issues and things like that. But I put in my time not only in retail but in food service, and it sucked. Yeah. And there were a lot of mean assholes. But those jobs exist for a reason.
Yep. Yeah, they do. They do. And like I said, I mean, I always tell people, I'm like, that's not the way it was supposed to work. It's supposed to start someplace and go on. And I'm telling you, you can make an incredible living in working for McDonald's. You can do incredible things working there as a manager. I mean, a lot of those folks make, well over six figures. I mean, they make they make a lot of money if you're actually run the McDonald's. And
when I was in sales, and I was in sales and marketing almost my whole life, I made very good money.
Yeah.
The problem isn't with capitalism. It's with surveillance capitalism. And it's with people that don't actually do anything to earn money.
Yeah.
They just inherit money.
Yeah.
And they live off the interest. People that are that rich, that's out of control capitalism.
Well, again, I mean, I don't like to count other people's money. I'm libertarian. That's,
yep.
I have very liberal tendencies in a lot of areas. But at the same time, I look at it and I'm like, the accumulation of wealth is incumbent upon generations. It's not. That's the other thing. Most people don't look at it properly. If you want generational wealth, it's incumbent upon every generation to contribute to it, and ultimately, you want everybody's pathway to be the same, so that as everybody rises together, those differences don't make any difference at all.
The rising tide
It lifts
raises all boats.
It does, yeah. And and a lot of people like to demonize trickle down economics, but it was one of the biggest periods of growth in the United States, just like what we had prior to this current administration. We had one of the largest growth financially periods in the United States. And if you were in that was the case whether you were in the stock market or anything else. Home ownership was going back up. All of these great things, but hey, it is what it is, and gosh, this is one of those streams we could go on 1,000 different subjects. I love it
if we had the time.
Yeah. I always like to I always like to talk about this stuff because most people will shy away from it. And
I have.
Yeah,
well, but like I said, I realize once you connect the dots, it's all related.
It's bigger.
We're not going to get better Star Trek or better Doctor Who or whatever until we deal with the problems at home. You remember that song from the 80s about the burning bed? How can we dance while our bed is burning?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I love that song.
Yeah. And the singer for that band ended up in Parliament.
Yeah. Midnight Oil.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. But it's very true. How can you deal with the little stuff like pop culture and all that kind of thing when so many bigger things are happening in the world that are really a lot more important?
And see, that was something I realized that I couldn't do politics outright on my channel. First of all, at some point, I'm gonna retire from my real job. I'm gonna do YouTube as a job. While I build up actual production company. That's my plan, is to build a couple of different production things and go from there. I intend to make my film. I intend to make the animated series I'm working on with a couple other great creators. I intend to work into horror. Those types of things.
And by the way, everybody, please subscribe to Culture Casino. It's not hard to find, but it's a great channel, and I highly recommend it.
I was going to say, I think I recognize almost everybody here. So thanks for being here. Pat S is in the chat. I owe Pat S a video.
Hail Pat S.
Yeah, Pat S is an incredible producer for a lot of other channels. Does some good stuff for people. I love that.
And thanks to Mexican Iron Man, made it through Hurricane Ida.
He did. Yeah, we've got a lot of people in our fellowship that are in coastal areas, and they've been dealing with this stuff.
That's the thing, is that this group of YouTubers is a community.
Yeah.
And it's not just a community in the sense of, oh, I love you, brother, and, we're going to do, a stream with several channels, and we're going to all, help each other get monetized and get better and do better, have better content. But it actually is about the people. We have community. This is my tribe. You don't get to pick your family, but the people that I'm involved with on YouTube are my tribe. They are my friends. They are my family, and they're very important to me.
Yeah, I echo that completely. That sentiment's beautiful. I had the unique experience of going to Vegas for the get together. It was incredible. Meeting everybody.
It looked like a lot of fun.
Meeting everybody. That was key to me, right? And I still have, some of the poker
putting
chips.
Names to faces.
And hanging out with everybody. I still have the poker chips that I handed out for free to everybody that I met.
Cool.
Still have some of those.
Let's make that big so we can see that.
Yeah, you bet. There you go. Yeah, I think a lot of you that were there, that's going to focus. It's not. My green screen's going to freak. But anyway, that's the poker chip. Bear dogs on the back. Of course.
There were poker chips made for that get together.
For me, I made them. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I handed those out. These are the $5 denomination. These are the first coin.
Are those perks for your members?
No, actually, anybody that met with me got one of these. So that's not.
But you have some left over, right?
Oh yeah, I have some left over. But here's the thing: the next time we get together, then this is what I'm doing. The next time we get together, I'm gonna give away the remainder of these. right? But I'm also going to have a different denomination. So every time I go to a get together, I'm going to give a different color of a different design.
Very cool.
To everybody, because that's more. This is more about, okay, I was there, I got this thing, right? I mean, I have a lot of stuff from different conventions I've gone to around the country, right? And so these poker chips, I have people from around the world that want these, and they'll never make it.
I want one.
Oh, of course, absolutely. You can have one, absolutely. But I have people from around the country that have contacted me. I'm going to mail them to. I'm gonna look, if you're gonna make it to the States, I want you to have this. That's how important all of the people are to me. So
I personally think it would be a great, Patreon incentive, reward, whatever you want to call it.
It would be cool, but I'm not. That's not how I'm wired. That's the thing is, I want to
it's not about the money. I get it.
I mean, I want this to be eventually about the money, and I like that.
It's about the community.
It's about the people, and that's ultimately it. So, unfortunately, I wish we could go forever. I can't. I have adult things.
Real life.
Yeah, well, with dinner, I have to make sure that we eat this evening. Bad
things could happen.
Well, and Bear Dog has to go for a walk, and those types of things. But I want to do this again sometime. If you'll have me back at some point in the time.
Oh, you bet, of course.
I of course would like you to get onto my Sunday show. I know that you are always streaming, but and I've got some people.
What time do you stream on Sunday?
11 a.m. PST. So that is 12. That's 1 o'clock PST.
I can do that.
Yeah. So we'll work that out. I'll get in touch with you. It'll be a few weeks down the road, and we'll get you over there, and you can hang out on my channel, and we do something similar. Now, like I said, one of the reasons, this is the whole reason I went into all that. I realized that I needed to stream every day, and I needed to bring more news elements into my channel. So, I was making 3 videos a week, and that was great. And I would do a live stream every once in a while. What I decided is I created the 6-minute daily, which is, every single, morning for most people. And it gives me a chance to cover some news items.
In reality goes for 10 minutes.
It's 10 minutes long. I always tell everybody it's the 2-minute warning, right? So this is just my sound check, so I don't boomer it, and yet I still boomer it sometimes. Then we have 6 minutes, and then there's kind of a couple minutes towards the end that just get tacked on. If I keep it really tight, it's 9 minutes 34 seconds. But anyway, I don't care. Nobody else seems to. But anyway, the whole reason I did is so I could present these news stories. So like today, I presented a story because we were talking about the antitrust stuff. South Korea fined Google $174 million today for monopolistic practices. One of the EU countries a week and a half ago fined Google in the couple $100 million range for monopolistic practices, and several others have done so as well. Of course, Time Prophet says it's 4:45 in Britain, and it always remains 10 minutes after your stream. Oh, that's true. You guys are incredible. I can't believe the support I get from all of the amazing humans in the fellowship. I really can't. But
it's amazing. It really is.
Yeah, but being able to incorporate those news stories allows me to bring a little more politics into my channel. My channel is focused on pop culture and entertainment from the business side of things.
And for instance, not to interrupt your outro, but it's important because the things that we talk about, if we didn't have opposing points of view, first of all, it would be very boring. We'd all go, oh yeah, a second season of whatever was great, and then that'd be it. That'd be a very boring life. However, if we don't give each other the opportunity to have a reasoned, informed debate, not an argument in the sense of a heated, I'm yelling, whatever, but in the true sense of an argument where two people have differing viewpoints, or maybe just viewpoints that they hadn't considered or thought of, they were ignorant of. And if you don't allow that opportunity, like today, several times you changed my mind on things I was thinking. Yeah. Hopefully, I said at least one thing that you didn't know.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You helped me greatly. You know? I always tell people when I go on somebody's channel, they help inform my opinion. And maybe they've changed it. Maybe there's one aspect, or I can incorporate something that they've told me, a fact that they've given me into how I approach a subject. We can go back in time, because Small Time hit it on the nail, which I actually responded to saying exactly, because but that informs you, and you should take anything you can get from anybody else, and if you can pull the smallest little nugget out of it, if you can just even if it's a grain of sand, something, so at least you understand where the other person is coming from, it's helpful. When you go into a debate, you need to understand the person you're debating, so you need them to tell you about themselves and their point of view, so that you can have an effective, if and that's the other problem.
If you close yourself off to the other point of view, you can't possibly learn.
No. And again, that's why I get invited to come on shows all the time. I have no idea what we're going to talk about. I love it. It's fantastic. I feel, like I said, privileged to have been here today. So with that being said,
thank you. It was my honor, really.
Oh, no, really. I always have a great time, but like I said, I do have to slide out, and I was always about 6 minutes longer than I want to be when I gotta get going. But you guys are absolutely the best. I love we have the best chat. We do. Our fellowship has the best chat on YouTube.
Thank you. We're chat, everybody in the chat.
And for those of you who may have wandered over here because you saw me, or you saw my tweet, or you see this later in time and you're not subscribed to Cardinal Sin, you should be. Check out almost everybody, that you see has a channel. The Time Prophet has a channel. Several people that are here have a channel. Check out their channels as well. Those that are in the chat on the replay, so do that as well. But again, thank you for the privilege and honor of being here. I will look forward to coming back at your invitation. And
absolutely,
I look forward to seeing you on a Sunday Culture Review in the future. Okay,
I will be available, sir.
Well, thank you all very much. Everybody have a lovely evening. Take care of yourself. Take care of others. Wash your hands. And until next time, see ya.
We'll see ya. And great thanks to Culture Casino for being here. I know he's busy, and there's a lot going on. Everybody has a lot going on. And as he mentioned, many of the people in the chat aren't just people that hang around YouTube and go to other chats, although that's okay, and some people do that, but a lot of the people in the chat have their own channels, so please look at each other's channels. Go through this chat and subscribe to each other. That's how we grow, and there's nothing wrong with that. Eventually you'll find some channels that you like more than others, and you might unsubscribe so that they're not in your feed or whatever. But for right now, those of us that are building, we really need the support. And the community is amazing. It really is. I'm very happy with the support that I've gotten. I want to thank my mod, Antiderivative Jill. She's amazing, even though she couldn't be here right now because I believe I'm broadcasting versus Doomcock, which is kind of silly. So we will wrap it up. But take a look at each other, before social distancing and all of this stuff, even though I've taken the vaccine, and I believe in the science, and I think that people should in general get vaccinated unless, there are health issues. And again, I'm not a doctor, but the things that separate us are many fewer than the things that bring us together, right? We're all here on YouTube. We all have opinions, of course, but many of us are artists, musicians, content creators. We are successful at what we do at YouTube because we have a passion for what we do. Like me, my shows, Wednesdays, we're going to be, reviewing the brand new, not the new version, but the new remaster of The Prisoner, which is in 1080. Looks like it was made yesterday. It's in 5.1 surround. It sounds fucking amazing. And we're going to be doing that every week for 17 weeks. And on Thursdays, I have my UFO/paranormal show. It's called Into the Fringe. And if you're into that kind of thing and you're not familiar with the show, and I know a lot of people aren't because for some reason there's not a very big turnout in that show, but it's probably the best show I do. Please take a look at the Cardinal Sin channel. It's just youtube.com/Cardinal Sin. It's where you are right now. And go back and look in the playlist for Into the Fringe, and you'll find some amazing stuff. I've got some live streams that are about 2 hours long. I'm clipping some of the best parts out and making them available every day so that you don't have to go through, an entire live stream. I realize, analytics say most people don't watch an entire live stream, but by far my most watched show by at least 10 times any of the other shows that I do is Cardinal Sin and Friends on Sundays. And we're doing SmackDown trivia on that show. It's a pop culture trivia SmackDown. It's a lot of fun. And then when we're done, then we talk, kind of just have conversation about whatever. But, I get 10 times more viewers on that show. And the reason that I have been doing one-on-one shows this week is because people like Culture Casino and Jace and others just can't make Sundays from 3 to 5 Central because either they're streaming or that's their day off, or, just when real life kicks in or what have you. So I do want to thank everyone in the chat. And before I go, I would like to again promote this book by Cory Doctorow, How to Destroy Surveillance Capitalism. It's a great book. It's obviously not a very long book, but some of his others are equally as good. Down and Out in the Magic Kingdom is a joke on Down and Out in London and Paris by George Orwell. Information Doesn't Want to Be Free is one of the books that made him famous. He is a co-founding member of the Electronic Frontier Foundation. People that are fighting to keep the internet free and fight for net neutrality, which is something that right now we don't have. If you like really good science fiction that makes you think, Homeland is one of his greatest books. And getting back to pop culture, everything circles around pirate cinema, another hell of a read. So if you're not into Cory Doctorow, or if you don't like to read and you're more of a podcast person, his podcast is called, actually it's the Cory Doctorow podcast, but I believe it's based on his website, which is called craphound.com. So search on Craphound and or Cory Doctorow for whatever podcast catcher that you use. And he's always doing events all over to help us understand how to destroy surveillance capitalism in our own lives. Obviously, we can't destroy surveillance capitalism, the huge corporate government mechanism that's intruding into our lives. But as Culture was talking about, there is a phone coming out, and I will share my screen so that you can see it. And it's going to be a phone that you can rip the OS off of and actually have a private phone. And it puts privacy and security into the hands of everyday users. And then goes into some of the features, that kind of thing. But instead of having to jailbreak an iPhone, which is against the terms of service, which means it's against the law, you just get a phone that you can not have to be worried about being listened into on, or having the camera turned on when it's off, or any of those things. So, yeah, one way, don't join Facebook and give them all your information. The terms of service say all the photographs and everything you say looks like, sorry, I was reading the other chat. The terms of service, the EULA say everything you post on Facebook becomes property of Facebook. Well, I post stories that are my copyright. I'm not really sure how they're going to litigate that, but yeah, I mean, it looks like we have an open and free internet, but that's just the front end, my friends. Remember, there's a much bigger back end, and the whole point of it is to crush the individual because they don't fucking care about you. You're a number, and that's why we always come back to the prisoner.
I will not make any deals with you. I've resigned. I will not be pushed, filed, stamped, indexed, briefed, debriefed, or numbered. My life is my own.
Is it?
Yes, you won't hold me.
This stream and all streams on this channel are sponsored by StreamYard, the easiest way to create professional live streams. StreamYard is a live streaming studio in your browser. Interview guests, share your screen, and much more. Stream directly to Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, and other platforms. Always look professional, no software downloads, and trust me, if I can do it, you can do it. Thanks to StreamYard for sponsoring this show.
And with that, I'm going to read the Time Prophets chat. If the government wanted to catch criminals and monitor people, they may sell a secret phone, but they will have a back door. That's a very good point. So, as Culture Casino said, be good to each other, be safe, wash your hands, and thank you for watching and participating in today's wonderful episode. I was honored and very pleased to host Culture Casino, and I hope to see him again soon. And I hope to see all of you again soon. And until then, it's Cardinal Sin.